months I have to reset it, but otherwise it's pretty active.
What was that? Is that an Apple Watch?
Okay, it's 5:30. We've scheduled to begin at 5:30. Jody's checking the clerk's office to see if we can find that video that we showed the first time we did a meeting. So that I think it's a two or 3 minute video. And when she comes back, if we have it, we'll go ahead and show it. But in the interim, I'll turn the floor over to the city manager, Mr. Stephanopoulos.
Thank you. Based on the deferment of this item from the last council meeting, we thought that it was probably best to actually have a workshop to go over the content of this particular proposed ordinance again. Most of the revisions to this particular, or most of the revisions to the alcohol ordinance actually stem from workshops that occurred prior to the seating of the new council. And based on some of the questions that have been asked by individual council members, it just seemed to make sense to set it up for this type of a discussion. With that being said, both City Attorney Susan Hurley and Denise May from her firm are here. They are the individuals that have drafted this ordinance. And as such, they could, I don't know if Denise, if you want to give an overview of what's in here and why, and then council, if you have any specific questions that you'd like to ask, I'll try to answer them to the best of my ability.
Good evening.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. As your city manager's already said, this comes from workshops I realized before 3 of you were sitting on the council. So I think the last one was actually August 8th, maybe September of 2018. And these are the changes that came out of that. In a nutshell, what it does is capture SRX where it is now with no new. There's been a couple of questions that I'll kind of address on concerns with that. One being, what if I want to sell my business? Well, it's certainly not addressed in here now. It caps it with no new, meaning that if XYZ bar sells, then a new applicant comes in could make application. That could be changed to say we're going to cap it at the number we have and a new, or allow for transfer. Right now we say no transfer of business. There are a couple ways to handle it. We're going to either cap it at the number we currently have, which I believe the city has given me a number of, you have 61 SRX restaurants throughout the city.
That's just SRX?
That's just
not
SRX.
including that.
That's
What's
correct.
your fee?
There are 12 COPs in addition to that. You could cap it at that number citywide. I could get better detail on how many of those are in the PVD. You know, I don't know.
Denise, before you go any further, I'm just going to pass these around. If you take one and pass it around. That is some information that was put together by the police department. The information that Denise is referencing is at the top with regards to the number of SRX establishments and the number of 4 COP SRX/SFS establishments.
And I'll just explain that real quickly. SRX is what you have historically known the license type to be. And what you see now in the ordinance is /SFS. That's due to a statutory change in 2017 by the lawmakers in the state that just said we're not going to call it SRX anymore. It's now called SFS, Specialty Food Service. So I just left both the historical reference and the new reference. You have old license types out there that still have SRX, but new license types will have SFS. They're the same thing. And the requirements are the same under the law. They just changed the name to be complicated. That's what they do, right? No good reason, just did. There's a couple of options. You have 61 4 COP SRXs citywide. I don't know what that is by zone. So if you didn't want to just cap it at citywide and say, if XYZ bar sells, that's one down, but we still have one out there that would be available, per se. They will always going to have 61. We're just never going to grow more than 61. Or you could do it by zone. You could say, CBD, how many are there? How many are here? And give some more analysis to maybe the number you want in each district. And look at it that way. Do you want to grow it? Do you want to cap it? Do you want to shrink it? So there are some options there.
Was the point of the non-transfer to stop bad actors from getting closed on and then reopening under a different name?
Under a new name.
Right, so if I recall correctly, I think it was Mr. Pratt from Sneakers who spoke at the last council meeting. I did feel for him because if he could say he's playing by the rules, and has no citations and wants to sell his business, I think it would be unfair for him to be penalized if he has been operating a legitimate business all these years.
I think you're right, and I think the one thing that we didn't consider was the possibility of transferring what they've got. So if you haven't had any infractions, then you buy a license with no infractions.
Right.
If you got 2 infractions, or 2 out of 3, then you inherit those 2 infractions. I mean, that might be something we can do.
Some transferability. I think city probably wants to still maintain some, if a new person needs to come in and make application, you want to know who they are and you want to get their information on file, per se. But yeah, we could look at some transferability of what's existing, cap what you've got.
Legally, can you punish a new business for previous businesses' actions?
What we're talking about here are privileges within the city, and they're not land use. Okay. So while you may have a right to your use as a bar, the state only allows you to stay open until midnight, period. So anything over and above that is a privilege this city is given. And so it can be restricted.
And so legally, that would hold up in court. So if you say you have 2 infractions, I'm a new business person, I come in, those 2 infractions come with me, I get another one, you try and take away my license, I'm going to bring you to court.
I probably advise that if you've got a new business coming in, we are going to put some transferability in there, that they start it fresh. In other words, it's a little hard to say these 2 infractions that were against XYZ are now against ABC.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Is what Charlie was saying.
Yeah, so I probably would, if you're going to, let's do some transferability, we could look at that, but I would not penalize right out of the gate if they are truly a brand new business. And that would require some intelligence to say, is this LLC the same as the other LLC?
And what about the cap you talked about? Would it make sense to cap the existing businesses alone, and then if the one business sells, that it
Allow transferability of that.
to that one business, but still not another one outside of the area?
You know, I think that's a more rational basis of doing things. One, I could even try and get some information on how many do you have per zone. I don't have that right now. And maybe you want to look at it by zone. Maybe there's a certain area of the city where these are overly abundant that you really don't want. You don't want to grow them, and maybe you do want to reduce them. I don't know. That's a decision you guys have to look at and make.
I thought the comment was made that, and I think it was Ms. Early who suggested that we look at this as only a downtown, to focus only on downtown, because she wanted us to go and make the public safety case, but you really couldn't necessarily make that in other areas of town. Is that not, am I remembering that incorrectly?
Well, I'm not sure what Ms. Early said. I'll have to let Ms.
Early?
Early say what she said.
Now, what I remember saying is, when we were looking at the options of redoing the ordinances, you may want to look at whether you have more calls in the CBD area, the downtown area. If that's where we're having most of the problems, then we may want to address the ordinance in that direction. And I recall that we talked about having the ordinance only apply to CBD. And
But I thought there was
yeah, but I don't. We talked about, I remember we've had problems in some of the SRX licenses outside CBD. And I'm thinking about the place out near Beach Marine. And I think Pat Dooley brought that up.
Yeah, there was a case a few years ago where there was a nightclub and the post office at thank you. That they were on SRX and they were having a lot of call-ins. So
What you may do is force the bad actors out of CBD if you focus just there, to go outside the CBD and open up. And that doesn't make them any less a bad actor. Which is why I think looking encompassingly across the city and having all the rules apply everywhere, but it still makes sense to look at the number that you have per zone. Because you know how big they are, and Bill Mann can give us, this is the area we're talking about. CBD is small, it is compact. So you want to look at that maybe differently than what you look at other zones. But I would probably be, don't force them out of your CBD, and now you've got a problem over in C1 or over in C2.
yeah,
I can be wrong, but I thought we transitioned from downtown to citywide. That's
It is
what I remember.
citywide.
It is citywide. I just remember the discussion being that if we focused it on downtown, I think it was that we would need to be able to make a public safety case to kind of justify focusing on that one area. And I thought that was what the consensus was, but it was a long time ago. Had a lot of meetings.
So the way it's written now, it's the whole city, correct?
That's correct.
So the way this stands, if someone wants to open a sports bar in the South End in the Target Shopping Center, they would not be able to open up a business that would stay open after, or serve alcohol after midnight.
After midnight.
With us knowing not who they are, what they are, why they are. We're just saying blanket, you cannot open a business that serves alcohol after midnight anywhere in the city.
That's correct. There'd be no new. That's the way it's written.
Yeah, I don't agree with that. I think that's very restrictive to people that we don't know who they are, why they are, the hotels that are coming in that might want to have a late
Well,
night
hotels are
restaurant.
different, and that's
Okay.
another question that I got. So this is by license type, and the only license we're restricting is SRX SFS, okay? These that are in your hotels and motels, they have different license types. They have a license type that's going to be one
CPS.
yeah, SHF. So they have different license types than SRX.
Okay,
So the ones you're addressing right now, yeah, they have S, SH, and SHQM. Those are 3 different types that are used in hotel motel. Bowling alleys have a different type, clubs have a different type. This one only addresses those which are pretending to be, or the rhinos, restaurants in name only.
it addresses everybody.
The ordinance does, but what we're saying is to capping, the only ones we're capping are SRX.
Or businesses that we don't know about yet because they have not.
Literally, they have to be coming in as an SRX. It doesn't,
Right, but that's what I'm saying, if somebody wanted to open a new SRX after this goes into place,
Right.
whether they're a bad actor or not, we're telling them they cannot serve alcohol after midnight.
only as to SRX.
Of people, we have no idea who they are, why they are, where they are.
But if they had an S or SH, we're not addressing, they
Okay.
could.
Okay, I get what you're saying, but you're saying it only addresses rhinos, it also, it addresses every SRX, whether they're already here or not.
That's correct. All SRX.
Does it only apply to alcohol sales? Could they stay open as a restaurant, or is they have to close at midnight?
Well, technically, they have to start serving at midnight. Now, making an enforcement of that distinction is rather difficult to do.
Chief Julian had made several points about it.
Island on the table, pre-order drinks, I understand that. I guess I'm torn between distinguishing between a restaurant and a bar, which should be our goal. We have 12 liquor licenses for a reason. We have a restaurant license for a reason, because your primary business is to sell food. So I don't know if there's a time, 12:30, if moving the needle on that changes things, but I guess who would be deterred? Like if you look at the town center, every restaurant in the town center is closed by midnight because they're restaurants. There isn't anywhere in the city that I think of that a restaurant stays open past midnight. You go to Atlantic Beach, I don't think in Atlantic Beach anybody's open past 12:30 on Friday and Saturday. We could make a distinction between Friday and Saturday night if we wanted to potentially extend it, but obviously as you can tell from the numbers, that's the problem for our police department.
Well, and it's at least if they have the option because we don't know what we don't know. I don't know. Just because I can't think of who that would be. I've gotten one call from a restaurant owner in the South End who's worried about this, and it's a very good business that tends more to live music and showing sports, which is the kind of business I think we like to support, but he's very scared about this. So if there's a way to have some sort of application, I completely agree with the premise of this in that we need to find a way to hamstring the bad actors, and especially in our downtown. I completely agree with that. But I still go back to, are we fully enforcing all of the zoning or the code enforcement that we can enforce? There's things in here that are even mentioned that, are we really going in there on fire code and occupancy? Are they keeping their 150 seats up? Because now we're just adding one more thing to enforce, and I don't know, and hopefully we are, and this is a non-issue, but are we doing all that we can do on code enforcement with these bad actors to make it uncomfortable for them to try to operate in our city before we try to do a blanket ordinance that affects every SRX in our city.
And to address a couple of your points, existing are not, should have no reason for concern because they're not being acted on. But number two.
Unless they're trying to sell their business.
Unless, correct. Are we doing all we can? We've both held many hearings. She on Sydney's, me on Habibi, and yes, that was over a fire code violation. So I'd have to ask, the officers are doing all they can. And this is enforced by your officers as code enforcement. And that makes sense because the bad actions happen at night. And you don't have code enforcement officers at night. The other thing this also addresses, just so you know, and these may be better things you want to keep if you still want to look at capping SRA, is we were requiring the existence of security plans and video footage. That was because in many cases we had brawls all out into the streets, and we want to be able to catch those when they're inside the business. So that's one thing you might not want to throw out with the bathwater.
That was the other question that I have was the existence of working security surveillance. Doesn't say where they need to be. It doesn't say what standard, how many. There's no, do they have to have sound? I mean, I don't know. It just says verification of the existence of working security surveillance cameras. So that's an expensive proposition for a restaurant to add in if they don't, if that's not something that's already in their plan. And they have to provide it upon demand. So what if they don't have it in the right place? What if they don't meet the demand of what's
We
required?
can get more detailed with it. The more detail you have, the more you have to enforce. What we did with the meetings, and I think with business as well, is they had to bring in a working security plan. It was given to our officers who reviewed the security plan and said it's good. And then they had it on file, so they knew what was in the business. And so it's the officers who will look at, yep, this is a valid security plan, they'll work. It usually is a matter of working with you to get you where we need you to be. And that's the whole point. I don't think we need them to have top of the line security surveillance at every particular outlet, and unless that's what you intend, not the intent of this. It's really just to capture what's going on so they can see on the video. And the officers would review the study plan or the security plan and say, yes, it's good, no, it's not. We did this with Habibi, we did this with Sydney's. And they brought us those plans with no problem.
Well, it brings insurance on too. If you're in that business, it's a lower premium if you have, and this is restaurant or bar. If you can prove that somebody slipped and fall or didn't slip and fall, there is a tangible benefit to your insurance.
And that's fine, and that should be the decision of the business owner, but in this case, we're just saying working security system, which I don't think is achieving what you're saying. It doesn't say have a security plan approved by the Jacksonville Beach Police.
Well, we can certainly add.
I mean, I feel like there should be some other sort of specification in there of what are we looking for out of that footage that they have. We're requiring them to provide it within 72, or for them to keep it for 72 hours. What exactly are we looking for out of that? And do we know what we're looking for?
Video footage.
Well,
If there's a bar fight that starts in the bar and ends up pushed out, what happens is bar fight starts in bar fight gets pushed out into public,
Yeah.
and it becomes a public problem. And that's what we're trying to tie back to the bars in order to enforce our.
so so they need it for 100% of their patron space.
We're referring to them bars.
Well, keep in bathrooms and it can't be.
Well,
Right.
Some are bars, some are restaurants, and we extend permits for both of those. So it happens in both places.
I guess my concern is we're going to create an unfair, unbalanced downtown or wherever we're putting these to where if I'm going to open a new restaurant, I mean, I'm not going to bring it, even if, I'm finally closing at midnight, I'm competing against people that can stay open later. So most people are going to go to them, to those other places that are grandfathered in. I mean, by grandfathering everybody in, we're not solving any of the problems. I think the situation is resolving itself. The bad actors that we've had for the last couple of years, 2 of the 3 that I think the city has considered bad actors are one's closed, the other one is gonna be closed in 3 months. That they got a hotel going in that area. We've got 4 hotels coming. People coming and staying at our hotels are going to be more towards families and stuff that are going out to restaurants. And I think we're going to create an unfair playing field, and we're going to deter good businesses from coming to our community. I think we have multiple, they're just building the one on First Street with the Jay Johnson Gallery, that I think that's going to, you know, I would foresee those owners being good owners and diligent about it, but I think that they would be against this. And if they're going to put 2 other restaurants inside, I mean, I think it's okay to have like a bar area like 11 South does that can stay open for families. I mean, we're solving the problem by fixing the downtown. We don't need additional regulation.
I just one thing as well, I think everybody should think about is, do you see a bar license the same as a restaurant license? Because essentially that's what we're discussing here. If you think that because the times are midpoint, the bars are open to 4, with the restaurants want to open to 4, the bars are open to 6, with the restaurants want to open to 6. You know, do we see the validity in having, is there any point in having a 4 COP license? Or if there's no regulations, should we just have all SRX and then people wouldn't have to buy 4 COP licenses? Because at the minute, there's no difference between the licenses, even though they're completely different in the eyes of the state. They're different from an operational standpoint. They're expensive just to buy. You need higher insurance. You need, you know, it's not saying we're creating a unlevel playing field. It's like, because there's some bar owners now, I think that they're being penalized for people coming in and opening, you know, rhinos. So they're like, well, why do I have to pay all this money when Joe Blow can open up a place for a fraction of the price, see if it works. If it doesn't, there's not a whole lot lost. Whereas if somebody was to do that the other way around, they'd have to put, you know, a lot of time and effort, money into the business before they even open the door. So
we don't have the ability to take away our letting them stay open to 2 a.m. at this point in time if they have multiple violations.
Yeah.
Magistrate makes that decision.
And that's
Then,
another
I mean-
part of the ordinance that's being changed now. We used to have one bite at the apple where the first violations didn't go. That's part of the change in here. Is now all violations would go before your special magistrate, but yes, it takes multiple times.
So that's the whole point. Is a bar license the same as a restaurant license? If it is, then that's just not even.
I mean, my other concern is that, you know, if these places are gonna close at midnight, I mean, it doesn't mean people are going home. You're gonna have people standing out in line trying to get into places that are allowed to stay open. And I think we're gonna have a lot more people running around from 12 to 2 a.m. downtown. And if alcohol is really the problem, why aren't we shutting the bars down then too? I mean, if alcohol is the problem, then we need to, then I don't understand why closing part of it, impacting the restaurants, why don't we, I mean,
It's people run rogue operations is the issue. I don't think alcohol is the issue, it never has been.
I mean,
It's the fact that you have people coming in onto the premise of serving food. And you've mentioned yourself that since I've been here 20 years, there's always been places like that you wouldn't dare eat in them, but for drink, they don't have that license. So if just say the downtown area, the center business district, is creating a drain on police resources because there's people running these type of establishments, then is it not our duty to do something about it? And it'd be the same for the bar.
we just got a list of calls from a particular establishment comparing it to Bo's. And I mean, Bo's had 20 or something over 5 years, and the other establishment it was compared to had like 400, and that's a bar.
Right.
I mean, it's,
Well, that's the thing. I mean, it was 450 against 100 or something.
okay, yes, but I mean,
But
there was 450 in the last year compared to multiple years.
Five, but so then is the current system working? If
Can
it
we,
seems like it's not.
can we talk to maybe our police, the people in charge of enforcement? I think that's at least the
Yeah, absolutely. I was just going to
appropriate.
bring up, this is a police, it's a little bit old, it was middle of last year, but it shows not just the restaurants and who's 4 CPS or X versus regular bar license or whatever, but what time they close. Monday or Sunday through Thursday, Friday and Saturday, and we're only talking about a few. that are a problem, about 9 that are a problem out of the, it's here listed 35. So out of the 35 listed SRX, for COP SRXs, there's about 9 that close at 2 o'clock. And of those, there's 2 or 3 that are problems. I mean, real problems.
And how many of those have already are closed? I mean, or about to close?
The only one on here that I know is closed is,
Sydney or whatever that one was.
That-
What it
Well,
was.
and that's my thing, if there's 2 or 3 that are the problem, we're doing something that addresses the entire city for 2 or, I feel like we should be a little more tactical than doing this whole overreaching thing. If they're really,
What do
if
you
it
guys-
really is as boiled down as you said.
Mark and Gene, what do you guys run into from an enforcement perspective in dealing with the bad actors? Because that's what we're talking about. Either of you want to talk about it, what do you lean on or want to lean on, or what do you think you need in order to have better enforcement?
Yeah, if you guys can come up to the table so it gets recorded.
And are you currently having problems with SRXs or bars? More so.
Maybe you can actually walk them through the data that's on
Yeah. I've just got a statement now to turn over to Mayor Smith, but what we saw, the one with the security plan was Sydney's, the ones that we had the issues with, majority of the time was the management. It was the enforcement of their own laws. When we did their security walkthrough, their security plan, that took a couple of times. Some of the stuff that they had to do was just signage. They did have a blind area, we shut down their balcony for a while because they were having repeat issues up there. And when we dealt with that management time and time again, as well as the supervisors on the street, it was things that the other bars were already doing. Is you've got bars across the street that have a balcony. Why is it happening over here? Well, it went down to, are they, I don't want to say a legit business, but are they running it like a real professional business? And that's kind of what we saw. Downtown Cape, I'll turn it over to Mayor Smith because they dealt with it the majority of the time.
We've been dealing with it for a while, and this issue ebbs and flows. We'll get a Twisted Sister, and I'll mention them because they're not here anymore, and Sydney's. What will happen is those bars will roll in, SRXs will have a boatload of problems. We all will get together, we're going to do this, we're going to do something about it as a group. Then it ebbs a little, and the conversation tends to calm a little when bars close, and then we have nothing in place, and then when it starts back up at Sydney's or a Twisted Sister, we're having the same issues again, and we don't have any tools to deal with it because it ebbs and we let it go. That's the first issue. Yes, Mr. Nichols, you're absolutely right. I think it's ebbed a little, but there's a Twisted Sister and a Sydney's out there that will be here eventually that will be giving us problems. Second issue is with the enforcement. I think Ms. Early would concur. We tried for a year to go after Sydney's and to enforce, and we did. We took them to the magistrate. It's a lot of time and a lot of effort, which is okay, but it's very litigious and it's a very slow process. In the meantime, we get first warning, second warning, suspension, third warning. In the meantime, all this stuff's happening. By the time we're able to close them down, it's been 6 months and we're on the news again. The final point, I've looked at this every way I can. I don't see a way where we can classify a bad actor without making the rule for everybody. Either we let everybody stay open to 2 and just deal with it as it comes, or we close everybody SRXs at midnight except for the grandfather businesses, and it's going to hurt new businesses. There's no way that my officers can look and say, okay, this is a bad actor, we're going to single them out. And I think Ms. Early will agree with me. And we've lost not quite a few, we've lost a couple going to the magistrate because it's so technical aspects and the litigious nature of this. And I just don't see a way we can let good people in and keep out bad people. I wish I could think of a way, but I can't.
and if you look at, I'm sorry, just real quick, injection. If you look at this list, and I'm happy to pass around, we all got it last year. Restaurants close at 11:30, 12 o'clock. They don't stay open until 2 o'clock in the morning. If they're staying up till 2 o'clock in the morning, we're about to run this video. you'll see that they'll come in one instance, if it's the right video, we had some undercover females come up and ask for a menu at midnight or something, and they said, you know, so.
Can we get an update of that list? I mean,
Yeah,
would it be
well,
possible to update it
We'll get
to today's, yeah?
You mind running the video for me?
But I do think that us moving forward with fixing our downtown and being pro-business and with the, you know, with the stuff that we're working on with the CRA, that these issues are going to resolve themselves. Rent in the downtown in these areas are not going to allow for those businesses to exist. We need to make an area down there that we can have locally owned businesses that do other stuff.
What are our thoughts? I mean, is your primary problem CBD? Like, I mean, how much of an impact, let's say, because let's use Twisted Sister, for example. It's a good idea because they're not here. That is a business nowhere near downtown. There's sufficient parking, but having them stay open till 2 with a better enforcement program, how difficult would that be for you as compared to dealing with people in the CBD? Because it's not as crowded, it's obviously not as many people, it's not as congested. Can you differentiate? Should we differentiate on that?
We can certainly at Twisted Sister on Beach Boulevard, we can say this is from Twisted Sister, where at 3rd Avenue North and First Street, we might not be able to tell who it's from. So yes, to answer that question, yes, we can usually tell, but it took us a while to shut down Twisted Sister.
Right.
Also, if you remember.
We had a couple of shootings up there too.
I'm just wondering, because obviously we're addressing enforcement here to take the warning system away. And to address your issue of the problem of congestion in our CBD is obviously a problem, and associating it to a particular entity, I think, can be difficult. I feel like it's less difficult if you venture out of the CBD. I was just saying, just for discussion purposes, what if it was more strict and not grandfathered in? You grandfather everybody in, but no new businesses in the CBD, but you can allow people, if they want to open with restaurants outside of the CBD. That's not what we
Still have the permit. You can still, if you still had the permit, then if there was, because I believe Twisted Sister had it wasn't even a week ago, wasn't it? A Thursday night, college night, I believe.
So it was during the week.
Right. So I mean, like you're saying, if somebody was to come in and open up another Twisted Sister outside the CBD, we would still need something to be able to pull the reins back on them if they did start messing up. So.
I feel like you could have a later permit, maybe a 12 to 1 outside of the CBD for them to operate as a restaurant, not necessarily till 2 a.m. But I feel like you're going to get a less of a bad actor trying to open a restaurant that's acting as a rhino if you're opening at any of these shopping centers. It can't really be a rhino and succeed, in my opinion. Like let's say Monkey's Uncle was a restaurant.
It is a restaurant.
The old one. Yeah, but it doesn't have.
It's actually,
That's the thing, they are bars, it's for COP.
That's what I mean. So let's say it's a restaurant. To have that act as a rhino on the north end of the beach, I think it's much more difficult to become a bad actor from over there versus the crowd and the access that you have to people and drawing them in with specials or whatever here versus on your outskirts. I think it's harder to be a bad actor.
It's more noticeable.
And you get places like Graffiti Junction and Philly's Finest and stuff that are a lot of the sports related. And I mean, if we're closing them down at 12 o'clock, there's a lot of sporting events that it's really going to impact their full business. That they're not going to have people coming in there at 9 o'clock. They might as well just not even open if it's a good sporting event. I don't think those pieces have. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if those places have been a lot of problems for you guys.
We don't have.
excuse me, GP, Mr. Moore.
Mayor Smith, I have a question. From what I understand, a lot of the issues when it comes to the enforcement part of the special magistrate and, you know, those bad actors who do bad things is the proof that the patrons came from that establishment because they push them out into the street.
Very difficult.
And so this way you can't tie it back. So this way a lot of these business, a lot of the rhinos and the issue ones, the issues are starting there, but we can't say that they start there because we have no proof that that's where they started. And they're not going to say, yeah, they came from our place, our bad. So looking at this as a whole, and always remembering that we can revisit this ordinance if it doesn't go far enough. In your professional opinion, if this were to pass through, with the exception of the 2 a.m., the not allowing it from midnight to 2, with that exception, being able to trace back where a lot of the issues happen with mandating the security cameras and all of the other enforcement tools in here, how do you feel, do you think that that would give you enough more tools in your tool belt to actually be able to deal with this?
It would certainly assist us in doing it. It would give us more tools. I still think it's going to take a while to really shut somebody down because of the case preparation. I got to get undercovers in there. I got to put a lot of investigative effort. And the first hit is 30 days, I think, or 30 to 90 day suspension. And they reopen. And this could go back and forth for 6-8 months before we can really shut them down. And there's going to be a lot of damage done. So it would help. None of this is going to be a panacea, I will tell you. These ordinances, everything we're doing, I think the ordinance is one bite of the pie, if that helps. And there's a lot of other bites of the pie, I think, that can contribute. We have a lot of calls for service from all different kinds of establishments. I personally had a problem with Sydney's and Twisted Sister. I believe they were a bad actor. I don't know whether anything we do is going to solve everything. When you consider playground for the county, 1 million+ residents, 85 bar and restaurants in the city, a big transient population as far as guest visitors, a lot of free parking. There's so many issues. I don't think we can point at one thing and say it's going to solve the problem. I hope that answers your question.
It does, thank you. My concern is, yes, I don't want to penalize businesses that may be coming in, but I also agree that restaurants tend to close at midnight unless you're trying to attract that bar scene and the late night live music thing, but some restaurants do that and they're still able to sell a lot of food. I think Mojo's does that. They have live music on weekends, but they sell food. But yeah, so you don't want to penalize those. So I'm just trying to find if there's a way that we can address some of the core of the issue now. And with so few restaurants being open till 2, if you are a new restaurant that comes in and you can still open with the SRX and you can still open to 2, but everybody has to have those security cameras facing the doors, hold the footage, and when there are issues, because there will be issues that spill out onto the street or the boardwalk or anywhere else, you can request that, and then that gives you a tool, a visual tool for the magistrate.
Every enforcement tool you give us helps.
So if we give you the enforcement tools to be able to, if a new person comes in and they're a bad actor, and you have the tools to say, within a certain amount of time, shut them down, why do we need to limit them? Why do we need to limit the good actors from being able to come into our area? If you had the tools necessary to shut down the bad actors, would that solve the issue?
If I had the tools, yes, that would take care of the dilemma. I think it's very difficult for even ABT to shut businesses down. So we can, as long as there's an understanding when we leave here that we will be doing and we have done the best we can. I just can't shut down a bar in a month. It's very difficult. Would you agree with that, Susan?
Yes.
No matter how many
They
violations.
fight back.
We all want to get rid of the bad actors, but I also don't want to limit good people, good business owners coming into our community and trying to make a living, and and with the number of hotels and tourists that we're going to have coming in this area, and spending $200-300 a night on a hotel room. There's some people that are going out and spending a lot of money for dinner, and people eat dinner late. That are doing that.
I understand, and it's just one thing, I might be way off base here. I do have a little experience in both, and maybe Keith can help me out with this. The profit margin for food is not what the profit margin for alcohol is.
Right.
So when you open up business with expensive rent in an area, you have pure intentions. There's no doubt in my mind all these people start out with pure intentions to serve food and have a full-service restaurant bar. Slowly, once you pay the rent and the utilities and the employees, you go to where the money is, and I think, Keith, you'll agree with me that the profit margin is in the alcohol, so you'll see the businesses slowly shift to bar night to band night to drink specials to, and before you know it, there is no food and they're making all their money off liquor to pay the bills. And I think that's part of the problem when you mentioned the rents are so expensive down there.
And I think that y'all done a really good job, and the people that we've had problems with, they're moving out.
Yes.
We don't see them moving in with Sydney and then the other location that's going to be the hotel. I mean, these people are, you're enforcing what we need to do. We need to give you more teeth in order to do it quicker. I don't have a problem with that, but I mean, we're moving past the problem that we have, and by grandfathering everybody in, we're not really solving anything.
The only people to be grandfathered in are the people that have been established and don't have problems, don't have the documented problems. I think, well, let's take a minute to look at the video. Go ahead and play the video for us, Joey.
Shot, one was killed, and there was another incident in which shots were fired, only on News 4 Jax. Now the I-Team has uncovered video of a fight where a man appears to have hit a police officer. I-Team reporter Vic Micolucci gives us the details. He's joining us live from Jacksonville Beach. Vic?
And Tom, this scuffle started just behind me here in front of a local bar. It spilled out into the street. That's where police were able to take this man into custody. We showed the video to the mayor. We showed the video to people around here, and they say this is just one example of the mayhem that goes down on a lot of weekends here in Jax Beach. This is exclusive video from around 2 o'clock on Sunday morning as the bars are letting out on 1st Street in Jacksonville Beach. When police handcuff one man, another appears to attack them. Officers quickly take him to the ground and arrest him. After someone sent us this video, the I-Team pulled the police report. Authorities arrested 29-year-old Jamel Bailey of Jacksonville for resisting an officer without violence and public intoxication.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
Marcello Carr and his family are visiting from Georgia, and they've been hearing the news about the recent violence in Jax Beach. 23-year-old Leon Bennett was killed 9 days ago after leaving the bars. On Saturday, shots were fired along 3rd Street, but no one was hit. And then on Monday morning, someone shot a man in the back near the pier. He survived. No one's been arrested in any of these crimes so far.
You don't see it to happen in a nice big tourist town like this, you know.
We checked, and Jacksonville Beach Police made 11 arrests over the weekend. 4 for public drinking, 3 for battery, 2 for resisting police, 1 for possession of a firearm by a convicted felon, and another for burglary. Still, some say they're worried about the future.
But it is sad that at Jacksonville Beach that can happen because it is a tourist attraction. And you know, it's sad, you know, kids want to come out here and play and stuff, and if it happens in the middle of the night, it can happen at any time.
And Jacksonville Beach Police did not want to comment specifically on what happened over the weekend, but they did say they are ready for the large crowds on 4th of July. In fact, there's already starting to be some people here, a lot of vacationers in town. I want to show you this. This is the Jacksonville Beach Police Paddy Wagon. It's a transport vehicle for people who are arrested or detained. They also tell me that they're going to have 16 officers on duty throughout the area to make sure.
We didn't call them. We didn't call them.
Jason mainly helping with traffic control. They ask anyone with information about any of these crimes to come forward and give them a buzz. We're live in Jacksonville Beach, Vic Micolucci, Channel 4, the local.
To answer your question, yeah, there is more profit in alcohol, and that's why it's about $400,000 for a license to dispense alcohol. Another thing was brought up there, firearms. If you run a for sale pay establishment, your patrons can not bring firearms in, whereas if you're a restaurant, people can bring firearms in. So, and it happens all the time at bars where people.
It's
not true.
I think the state.
It's not true.
No, you can't bring a firearm into
Anywhere that's like food.
alcohol.
Any alcohol.
No, and the majority.
I'm pretty sure when I got my permit, it was.
Primarily for the dispensing of alcohol.
Yeah.
If it's like a Carrabba, you're okay.
But
Right, so restaurant can bring
shootings, the one guy came out of Surfer, the guy that got killed, and the other 2 aren't tied to SRXs and restaurants necessarily. I mean, I think we're.
Well, then we had another video that most of them were coming out of the SRX videos, and Sydney's, which is closed now, but a couple of other bars where it did start in the bar and came out into the street, and it was clear. Yeah, the bottom line is, if you look at this list, and we'll get an updated list from the police department, credible restaurants are closed before midnight. They don't need anybody to tell them that. They do it. They close before midnight. The problem we've got is that people, and it was evident in the other video, I was hoping we had that one, where they will say, can I get a menu at midnight? And they'll say, we stopped serving hours ago. Well, they're there as a
That's
restaurant.
the case in Miami and other cities. I mean, the Jacksonville residents, we shut down early. Jacksonville residents, we shut down early. But I mean, I think there is a place for restaurants that when we have tourists coming to this area that want to eat after midnight. I want to eat after midnight a lot of the times. And there's just not the opportunity to do it.
So what's the process in the new ordinance for the violations in the magistrate? How many times do you go? That's the CPA's question. Can you just kind of walk us through first violation, second violation?
Before one violation, there was no magistrate hearing, and it took a second visit, and so it was delaying their ability to act.
So the first violation was a warning.
Kind of warning shot over the bow. In a lot of these, I tried to clean up the language because in Habibi's case, we were challenged. They got a lawyer. They challenged us quite heavily on our procedural issues. So they were picking apart the little stuff that lawyers do. So they were finding ways to say you're not following your own law, or you went into the first violation and went into the first conviction and this and that. So I'm trying to take all of that out to say, and you guys said no more warning shots. So now when it goes, it's going to be first violation goes directly to the special magistrate. Second violation is still going to occur if it occurred within 180 days of your first violation. Now, what can we do is up to 60 days at the discretion of the special magistrate, taking into account the severity of the violation. And I wrote that in there because the special magistrate is a lawyer who's sitting as a judge and has an ability to take in all the facts of the case. It's not like a board. So they're really going to sit and they can take into what is a serious violation versus a non. So they have some discretion up to 60 days. Second finding by the magistrate is going to be up to 180 days. So we're ramping it up faster. It used to be a first violation, nothing. Then it was your second violation, 30 days. To a third violation, 60 days, I think is what it took us to finally get Sydney's to. So we're making it a broader scale for the special magistrate right out of the gate, up to 60 days right out of the gate, depending on the severity.
So if we have these tools in order to shut them down if they're bad actors, why do we need to limit? Why are we putting a cap?
Well, that would be, that's not yet in there. It would have to be adopted. Now, if you want to still make, I understand what you're saying, which is why are we stopping SRX as new? And that's still a policy decision for you all to make as to whether you want to not limit new SRXs, whether you want to limit them by zone. But there are certain parts of this you probably want to move forward.
To finish your question, though, at no point, though, are they permanently suspended?
I think it's at the end. Yeah.
That's what I have. We talked about permanent suspension, I'm just not seeing it.
Subsequent violations occurring within 365 days, which is within 1 year of the most recent suspension, really still only goes up to 180. So no, I don't think that's in here.
Okay, that was something I know we talked about, and I think that was one thing we all agreed on. If they were habitual bad actors, especially when they've been given an opportunity to go in front of the special magistrate, how many times?
And I'm just taking notes so that I can make sure changes.
Well, I would say the third time.
That's what I thought we were talking about.
3 strikes you're out kind of rule?
Well, up to, I think up into revocation should be an option.
Okay. Up to on 3rd strike. So some leeway based on.
If it's something petty, you shouldn't revoke their license if it's something, obviously that's what the magistrate's job is.
Yeah, you give them that, in terms of the severity, I think you give them that
up to revocation.
Do you want to also,
that frame, but.
There's also no language in there about how far back can you go to include past violations.
Right.
I understand how long you can hold it against them, but can you say for punishment purposes that the magistrate's allowed to review violations in the last 5 years? from the date of the violation? Or is there any rules with how we do that? Obviously, this is a privilege like you talked about.
It is, but we do want to be careful about equal protection and some of that stuff. But what we've got it timed on right now is, you've got your first violation, you've got up to 60 days, and our second violation is tied to that issuance. So it has to be within, 180 days of that issuance to be called a second violation. So our third violation is now, well, it has to be within 365 days of that. You start getting attenuated when you start saying, let's look at everything they've done for the past 5 years.
And just to throw this out there, I know that you want to have some subjectivity with regards to revocation of the privilege. I would advise against that. And the reason being is if there's ever a differentiation between one person and another and the magistrate says, I will revoke it for you, but I'm not revoking it for you, that will end up getting us into a courtroom really quick and getting it all thrown out. So I think that if you're going to have a revocation, it needs to be defined, it needs to be hard and fast, and it needs to be the decision that's made under those circumstances, period.
Well, I mean, I think 3 strikes under that, and I would say 3 strikes and you're out, only because we're only going back. You would have to have 3 strikes within 1 year to get,
that's a lot.
And going through the process of talk about what Commander Paul talked about, the process is a lengthy process, so I'm happy that it's from issuance, not from being found guilty by the magistrate.
No, it's from issuance of the notice of violation.
Right.
In that 12 months, 1 year period would continue to be rolling. So if you had a third that occurred at the 13th month, you've still now got 2 that are in the queue. And if you,
I mean, when we talked about this before and went through some of the big picture ideas, to me, the idea of 1, 2, 3 strikes, you're out, that completely targets the people that are the habitual bad actors, and it's so much more laser focused to me than a lot of the rest of this. So I think that we do need to add in some, however we want to state it, but some potential ability of revocation, because I think that puts more teeth into the system that we already have in place, and that's what I'm obviously looking for.
Sure, and I know you're getting close, so I just want to make sure I'm understanding what you want. Okay, great, okay. I'm used to having to rush through this.
No, we've got time. It's the only item.
But to recap where you're at right now, and I know you haven't landed on where you want on SRX, new or not yet, but we do want to look at third strike revocation language, and I'm looking for nodding heads to say I have a consensus on that. And then verification of security plan, some language around letting the police take a look at this and make sure it's something that's...
I think that's where the standard needs to come from, where the videos are and all the other concerns Chris had is let the police set that standard.
All right, so I've got those, and then I know you've got more to discuss.
Well, I would like to, when this comes back up, to know how many establishments are in the different zones, because I can see having a cap by zone work citywide, and they're not all concentrated in one area. And then when we grandfather through, maybe just leave it at the number that's in the downtown area, but then he'll allow some in the south end and the north end.
Do you want the zones to be the same as the current districts within the city, or do you want a zone chart that's produced by staff that we feel best represents the city?
That'd be right, excited a second. That's it, because otherwise it's not gonna.
You could in theory have 2 zones. You could have inside the CBD and outside the CBD. You could break it into 4 zones, 1 for each of the 3 districts of the city, and then separate the CBD from the rest of the central district. So there's a lot of different ways to cut it into pieces. The question is, what would you like to see? It might be easier to just do inside the CBD and outside.
Yeah, we already have that.
This is by zone.
Right, but it notes who's in CBD and who's not.
Right.
We're just doing the 2 zones.
In the second portion of it, where you talk about, I've always heard that it's almost impossible to be able to check these rhinos to make sure they're selling 51%. So, I mean, but in that first sentence, it does say that, that they're violating the 51% food sale requirements set forth. Do we have documentation? I mean, do you have actual ones that have been violating it?
They have had surveillance
We, the 51% food,
I mean, do we have like accountability, like accounting and stuff in these?
they
places
are
that show?
state accountants only that do that through alcohol, beverage, and tobacco.
And there's no way to get,
And the rule is by ABT, if they do once, the business once in 3 years, they will not come back and do it again.
okay.
Because the alcohol lobby is so strong in Florida. And if, like an accountant has to do it, you have to go in and track bottles, of course, with
Yeah.
sales, and it's very complex to get a 51%. Some restaurants, when they lay up a rum and coke, put the line down as food. There's lots of ways to do it. It's
But have we had actual violations of that locally?
Mr. Nichols, I cannot remember a 51% violation.
No, I mean, I don't have, I believe that it is occurring, but I just have a problem with the way it's wording in here that it's a fact that it's occurring.
Oh,
They have been, ABT is shut all chemicals down for that, meeting at 51. But I think as well, like if you go into a restaurant and they're not serving food, you don't really see the numbers. Like, you know, Charlie brought up about on the video where somebody was in the restaurant and asked for a menu and they're told, well, we're not serving food. We don't need to audit them. If you're not serving food in your restaurant, you shouldn't be in business. So
Is that a violation in here?
We, again, as Commander is saying, we don't have an ability to audit them.
No,
It's a
from
rule.
12 to 2. If I walk in, because Mr. Nichols says he wants a late meal.
We have.
If I walk in at 1 o'clock and I say I'd like 2 tacos, and they say no,
That is correct.
that is a violation.
That is a
Yeah.
violation.
You're right.
We have done that.
do we have that now already?
It's an
Yes.
alcohol ordinance that exists.
That exists,
In
but
the
they have
second
done
or
it.
third iteration, we added that, and we send in undercovers
Yeah.
Right.
and say, can we have a menu? And Mr. Mayor, that's the one we got on video with asking for a
Right. Saw
menu,
that.
see what it served. Then it gets written up, then it goes in front of the magistrate, then combination there.
How is
I
the
mean,
table
I'm all for
enforcement
giving
been?
them the, what's that?
I was asking Mark or Gene, the table enforcement, because obviously we implemented that, having the stationary dining area and not moving that to have dance floors to kind of force them to stay a restaurant. How has that been?
That's for specific bars, we made that, I'm not gonna mention them, because there's still a few that are open. And from what I can tell anecdotally, and I can check into, there's been no table movement. The problem was they take all the tables, throw them over to the side, and it would become a dance floor. As far as I know, that has not occurred.
They don't do that anymore, yeah. I mean, I think we're solving the issue, we're solving the problems, and the bad actors are going out of business. And I think they just have a little more of a tool to move forward with it. We're gonna get rid of the bad actors, but we're still gonna leave our community open, business friendly, to have people that are good actors come in. I mean, I just don't see the need to, I mean, I have no problem with,
How many bars is too many? How many restaurants, Rhinos is too many?
how many is too many?
Yeah. I mean, at what point do we say we're being overrun by rhinos and we're not doing it?
Well, I mean, we're not getting a lot more right now, are we? I mean, I don't, I want to see other stuff down there, but I mean, I don't, I think you force out the bad actors and then there's going to be room for the good actors. I mean, they're talking about putting 2 nice restaurants in Jay Johnson. I'm sure they're not going to want to, if people are having a $500 dinner, they're not going to want to go, hey, 11:30, you got to go.
Royce closes at 11 voluntarily. Nobody's asked them to do that. I mean, most
Royce
quality.
is about to close also.
Well, I mean, there are other examples in here of good, nice restaurants that are closing at 11, 12 o'clock.
When's 11 South open?
10 o'clock.
12.
It says 10 on the, in their advertisement. Well, I got the time sheet from their advertisement on here.
Time there.
On Friday,
11 o'clock, I mean,
Oh, 12. Okay,
12
so
o'clock.
they're still closing at 12.
I think that's where we'll really get if we just do the caps by zone, I think we'll deal with a lot of these issues. And my concern isn't that yet, I'm happy to hear that the rhinos are going out, but that doesn't mean that the new ones won't come in. And so this is trying to stop the new ones from coming in. And a concern I really have is because the prices right now at the downtown area are so high for rent, that they might not be focusing on that area. They might start focusing on the strip malls that are closer to the residential areas. And that is really concerning to me because then you're going to have these 2 a.m. restaurants in neighborhoods that abut
But they won't last long if we give them the tools they need to shut them down if they're bad actors.
Not that quick.
It looks like a year is what we can expect.
And that's a year that's negatively impacting the people who live near those establishments' lives. And that's a long time.
I mean, we wouldn't have allowed Graffiti Junction open.
Graffiti Junction is in CBD.
That's
why we're talking about caps. Caps in different areas on the number of SRX licenses that can stay open to the street.
No, I understand what you're saying, I just disagree. I just think we're gonna, people are not gonna bring their businesses to our community, restaurants, just because they're playing on there's a different playing field.
I mean, I would disagree with you because people that are real restaurants are going to come because they're not worried about being open to come in.
Right. If your business model is dependent on that 2-hour window, you're going to fail anyway.
Yeah, I believe Chris said it at a meeting, she did say this at the meeting last year, that if a restaurant is staying open between the hours of 12 and 2, and that's the only way that they're able to stay open, they're not a restaurant. They're not paying the right amount for a good liquor license, they're not paying enough for insurance, they're not a restaurant, and we are only talking about restaurants here.
But if we can solve the problem another way without putting limits on businesses, why would we, grandfathering people in and putting, it just seems like we're fixing the problem with controlling parking and everything else we're doing to fix the downtown. I think it just, it's going to look really bad in the beach to be anti-business.
My comment would be that there are businesses that may not want to live there because we have issues too. So there's a lot of different sides, a lot of different ways to look at it.
But I think yes, I did say that and I stand by it, but to Corey's point, sometimes it's just the difference in the competitive environment with restaurants because when we were doing smoke-free legislation, businesses didn't want to go voluntarily smoke-free because the restaurant next door to them could have smoking. They wanted to be smoke-free, but they didn't want to have to compete for the smoking customer, especially if there's that competitiveness that it's a very tight market, no matter where you are in town. I think the part that I can agree with what Corey's saying and what you said earlier is let's take a big first step, but we can always come back and do more later as we go. I think we can all agree we need to do something about the situation, but I'd rather give more teeth to the tools that we already have out there and start to put those to work. Because we've had a lot of these places have been lingering for a lot longer than a year, that if we've been able to start working on them sooner, the problems might really have gone away faster.
I think a good decision we made if we have the data as to how many are in which zones. So what we're doing is we're talking here and just kind of what we think. And we need data. So we need the information as to how many are in which zones, restaurants, bars.
That's all well and good, but I don't know what the right answer is to how many is the right number in there. So even if I have the data.
Well, if we
doesn't tell me
see,
it
let's
should
say
be more or less than
there's
that.
40 just in the CBD. Well, that's kind of a lot in a very small area.
But
So
that's
do
the
with
idea of
that.
it downtown is to have, your merchants consolidated where people can park once and go to multiple places. So, I mean, is that a lot? I don't know.
I don't know how many there are. And so, but this would be the breakdown between the restaurants and the bars and where they are in the city.
And I was just asking the commander again, just to see if we could get data on the number of calls for whatever zone system that you set up. I don't know if that was added to the data and analysis that you'd want to look at and say, do I want to do this by zone and how many is too many? Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't, but it was just something I asked if they could, depending on the more zones we have, the harder it is for them to zero in. But if we're just doing it by zoning district, they could probably do
Don't get
that.
me wrong, I mean, we've got a problem in our downtown business district with the amount of people coming down, staying late night, drinking, causing problems and stuff. And we need to figure out a way to solve that issue. I mean, limiting a couple of the SRX and grandfathering people in, we're not fixing anything that we have right now. If we can give them more teeth in order to do that, I think that will. But if we're grandfathering people in, we're not really solving the issue. And I think the bars they're lined up outside of a couple of these bars at night, and there's just right over here. I mean, those are the ones turning into the problems. I mean, see, it's less of the SRXs now. I mean, there's nobody in Pier Cantina. I mean, it's, the problem's shifting to outside of the bars.
I disagree. Bars have security for the majority. The well-run ones do. Already have security, may hire off-duty officers, already have surveillance systems. Bars that are worth their salt want to protect their investment. If there are bars out there that are causing problems now, I don't see them staying in business long. Because, not because anything the city's going to do, but if you become a trouble spot, people will eventually stop going there.
I'm going to reiterate, we just need the data and we can get the data. So instead of just saying, well, I think, in my opinion, or I feel, let's just have the data and look at the data and make a decision off of it.
And unfortunately, Commander Evans and Smith just stepped outside, but the piece of paper that we handed around, I had asked the police department to just try to pull some information together for us to take a look at.
That's what we got before.
That's what you got before. Okay, pretty good. This was, what you see on this one piece of paper was specific with regards to total calls for service and then calls for service between the hours of midnight and 2 a.m. And what they did was they just did a representative sample. They tried to pull 5 of each. I think with the 4 COPs outside the CRA, I think there are only 2 of those. But with regards to the calls, what you can see is the calls for service outside of the CRA are substantially lower than the calls for service that are inside of the CRA, tagged specifically to the 4 COP. But again, with that being said, that's for the call itself. It's not necessarily what's happening. What I tried to ask or ascertain from them was was there a big differentiation between what happens up until the hour of midnight and then what happens between the hours of midnight and 2 a.m. And what you can see is that of the total calls for service, the calls between 0 and 2 for 5 randomly picked SRXs outside of the CRA is a total of 32 calls for 5 businesses over the course of a 13-month window from March of 2018 through April of 2019. So clearly, I think the issue that they're dealing with from a predominance of the calls is the 4 COPs inside of the CRA with a preponderance of those occurring between 0 and 2, midnight and 2 a.m.
So 10 times the amount of calls coming from the bars instead of the SRXs inside the CRA.
Yeah, and unfortunately, they stepped out. They could talk to you a little bit more about the data, per se.
Oh, here he is. All right.
Paul, if you could come up here. We were just talking about the actual summary of the incidences by alcohol license by the time of day. And we were talking about the fact that this was just to try and see whether the calls were occurring up until midnight or whether there was an issue occurring between midnight and 2 a.m. Maybe you could talk a little bit about that.
Correct. It looked like our peak 2-hour time was from 10 to midnight. And then it went from midnight to 2, and in between, it depends what 2-hour frame you took. But between 10 and 2, those were our peak times. And, right off the bat, you can tell that 12 to 2 was our highest. Then 11 to 1, and then midnight to 2 was our top 3. And then when you start to look at the average of all, the total of all 3, then it becomes a pretty large number. But as far as midnight to 2, it's third by a little bit of percentage of calls for service.
And this would be, that second graph, the percentage of calls for service time of day, that's just the downtown area?
That is the second graph, that is total in the city.
This is citywide. Okay, so and the third one is citywide as well?
Yes, we started to come up with a big numbers problem, trying to break subsets, start to break this down. When we get so specific, it becomes a huge statistical project, and Mike told me to just go with this for now.
With the calls for service, that includes all calls for service. Alarm, if the alarm goes off, you guys get a call saying check it out. Includes that, includes there's been a shooting there. It shoots everything.
That includes all calls for service. Yeah.
Okay.
So I wanted to walk through this data because, as you're saying, it would be good to see more data I think the question is, as Jean Paul just indicated, how much more, because the deeper he goes, the more intensive that effort becomes to pull the data together. I don't want to send them off on a 30-hour task if that's not really what you're looking for.
Well, and
But if it is what you're looking for.
Corey brought up a good point that the 4 COPs inside the CRA had 759 calls for service.
They are by far the highest, by far the highest call for service. And there's, once again, statistics, so somebody you can say whatever you want. A lot of those 4 COPs have off-duty officers too.
So they're calling.
So they're calling. So
Got it.
it becomes, you're going to have to separate all these different, you almost have to do a detailed analysis of each business, each call, and see which ones are truly problem calls. Then you also have, we'll call out a disturbance at the Ritz, for instance, but not really at the Ritz, it's right in front of the Ritz on the sidewalk. So you come run into those statistical issues too, also.
So is it possible to knock down the 30 hours of that time to just look at throughout the year, let's just go with the busy time of the year, this time of the year. Look at the busy time, pick out 2 or 3 weekends that there were spikes in the calls, just because like that will give you a lot of data there. And then look at what types of calls there were. Did they have an officer on duty? And this isn't just the 4OCPs, but it's also the SRXs. So a concern ends up being like, this is just the number of calls, but it's not the percentage of SRXs and all the businesses down there. So just looking at the raw numbers, and there's not an even balance. So it needs to be broken down in percentages. So this way, this percentage goes to this specific 4OCP more than these other 4OCPs, as well as 4OCPs percentage-wise versus SRX percentage-wise. You need to normalize for the difference in the number of businesses.
Yes. Are there currently any SRXs right now, today, that you would characterize as bad actors?
No.
Okay. So,
One thing I've noticed a spike in is underage drinking, and I could see, you know, because I pay my doorman to collect abandoned IDs, so if somebody hasn't who they say they are, they abandon. 99% of the time they're coming from some other establishment. And so I know we made efforts a few years ago to make the restaurants that were staying open to 2 o'clock, add security, and it looks like we're pushing to add cameras and stuff. So we're, in a way, we're trying to tell them to behave like bars, just to make it, you know, so there isn't a level playing field. But there are still issues there. You're saying there's not one SRX that's given a major problem now, but I'm telling you that I see a spike in underage drinking, and that's just through data that I've collected. And there's nothing really, there's always going to be underage drinking going on. But what I'm saying is we're in danger of actually creating an environment for SRX establishments to basically be bars de facto. And then at the same time we're trying to penalize it. So I think we're in danger of sending mixed signals with us. You know, do we want security? Do we want video surveillance? Do we want, you know, because Outback Steakhouse or Carrabba's or Roy's, they're not going to really see the point in doing all that. But in the same voice, they're the ones that aren't open at midnight. So, and another thing that I wanted to bring up as well is, we're talking about call-outs. A lot of places will not call the police because they don't want the statistics to come up. So, you know, we can manipulate statistics to prove almost any point, but there's always going to be, if somebody's going out of their way to basically defraud the state, and that's what this boils down to, they're given a license to sell food. They want to run bars. If they're going to go through that effort to defraud the state through their audits, they're going to find ways of not, you know, being true to the statistics, their call-outs, the amount of fights they have, the procedures for stopping underage drinking, the procedures for stopping over-serving. So I just think that while this is, you know, it is a step in the right direction, like you said, I don't know if it's going to be the solution. But one thing I do know is that we've been talking about this for 6 years. Constance before us for
Flan called me when we started working on it.
Right. So whatever we've been doing is not working because there's always.
Well, of course it's working, because you just said there's no SRXs that are currently a problem.
Well, that's not to say they won't be.
What if we made it where a new business could not get their alcohol, their after hours permit until they've been in business for 6 months?
Yeah.
What if they had to establish and begin operating before they could apply for it?
I would say 18 months, because that's usually the time span
Whatever.
that a restaurant would
Insert
fall.
amount
It
of
falls
time.
within, the majority falls within the first 18 months.
I mean, not.
Well, they don't get the first audit for 6 months from the state. So when you open up an SRX, you'll get an audit once you get it.
I mean, if they day one cannot walk in and start serving alcohol between midnight and 2.
They have to get the permit first, right?
So they have to be open for,
I'm saying they have
18
to.
months.
I'm not getting basically a probationary. Yeah, we've got about 5 more minutes.
If I may add one thing, we can do anything y'all want, and we will do anything you want. This is, especially before the vote, but, sorry, Mike. Mike's like, oh God, what have I done? Here, on one end of the spectrum, we can close every bar in the city, every place that serves alcohol at midnight. On the other end of the spectrum, everybody goes till 2, and then you have what's in between. I can, and a lot of us can make that decision in our policy. Because you tell me what to do, what kind of downtown you want, or bar you want, how to make that happen. But as I sit here, I am not sure what kind of downtown we want, and I'm probably way over the line here, but I haven't been sure for a while what we want. And I will do whatever, we'll make whatever happen y'all want, y'all just gotta tell me.
Do you have a concern with us closing the SRXs at midnight and then those people having been drinking, going out and trying to get into bars and staying in our community, staying in our downtown, outside of the area? Do you think we're gonna get a lot more people out walking around, trying to get into other establishments? Because I mean, right now, I mean, there's a bar that every Friday, Saturday night, there's gotta be 200 people in line at 1 o'clock in the morning to get in there.
There is, and I can't really answer a question. What I can tell you is, it's not just one issue. It's the parking, it's the bars, it's the SRXs, it's the tale of 6 cities that we have here from noon to 2 in the morning. It's 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 different cities. And all those problems that come together, one law is not going to solve them. This is just a piece.
I mean, obviously you have the tools necessary to be able to impact the bad actors, and I think that's the solution. If we get down the road and that doesn't solve it, then we look at another option. But I think being anti-business and having businesses play on different playing fields is going to be really negative to us fixing our downtown business district.
Commander Smith, I agree with you that we don't know what we want our downtown to be. This is an issue that we haven't decided with the CRA meetings. We keep saying, okay, we want a parking garage, we want cleaner streets, we want all that stuff, but we don't have the whole vision of what it is we're trying to accomplish with cleaner streets and a parking garage and all that. So that is really on us, it's not on you. Not even close. So we as a council with the CRA, we need to figure out the overarching, what is our goal for downtown? What do we see it being? What is it we are trying to attract there? Once we enter that, the parking garage and all that stuff and the CRXs and all that, that will fall in. But that's on us. We haven't addressed that. We've had meetings and we just keep dancing around the issue. We start talking about the minutia, all those little tools, but we don't talk about the overarching picture. What is our vision for downtown? And that's what you need. You need to have that overarching goal. And once we've identified that, we can figure out how to get there. We don't know where we're trying to go right now, so we can't get there. We're just trying all these different options. And it's problematic and something that's been going on for 6 years and longer. So we just have to kind of, we have to just get it done. We just have to get it done.
Right. That's it.
So there was a,
Here, do you guys want to meet, or do we have a
Just
direction?
to recap, I know that you want verification of security plan by JPP, I'll put that in something. Do you want to bring it back to briefing or before going to the first reading?
I would say a briefing, we need another briefing. We have to put in that, what we're looking at, looking for downtown, but I would also like to just see, just some of the stats so we can make decisions about specifically, because that is a big decision. Do we allow new SRX licenses to get the permit from 2? Do we wait 18 months? Do we cap it by zone? Do we allow it for everyone? Do we allow it for no one? That's a big decision. I just think if we have a little bit more data.
Then I'll make a couple of these changes, like verification of security plan, third strike route rule, but I'm gonna leave the other alone, so we'll give you some data and analysis around, right now, current zoning. Does that sound fair enough? I mean, is that easy enough?
do you want us to, is there a consensus to bring all that data back? My gut's telling me that's not a consensus.
There's a lot of things. There's a lot of things, and that sounds like a lot of data. I don't
Yeah.
know which of that I would need to make my decisions, but I also don't want to send you guys on full errand. I'm just bringing a lot of data to the table.
Number per zone that is currently exists? What term is it?
How many are in each zone?
How many are currently permitted after?
The mayor had asked for us to update this list,
Kind
which
of
shows
have it.
in CBD and out of CBD. Do you want us to update that list as the data
That would help.
to show you how
That would
many?
be great.
And who's open past midnight right
Right.
Who's open past me? Okay, so just to
now?
recap.
That's what we're talking about.
So she-
Well, that's it. I mean, I think we're all talking about different things, or taking different slants from this ordinance. We haven't addressed what it's trying to achieve. You know, I think we're skipping over that. Do we want to regulate the operation of the hours when alcohol is dispensed in the city? Yes or no?
We already do. Yeah.
Right. So yes, yes, all right. So I guess now we're going to say, well, is it throughout the city? Are we going to do it in zones?
But that's something that, again, we have to decide what it is that we're trying to achieve in the city.
So, I mean, we've already heard from Commander Smith about places that have been outside the CBD and created major problems. Now, whether there isn't one now, it's not to say that there won't be any
Where's
issues.
the sister's been close up 10 years?
For years, right. So, it's, I guess that's what we need to decide, is where we actually stand and what we actually want to do here.
What do
Because
we
it-
think of the future of the city? It's not just the CBD, but the city as
Well,
well.
that's why I think it should be holistic, and I think it should apply. We should have something that's going to apply outside the CBD, just in case there are people that want to migrate.
My concern
I think
is,
the regulations that we're going to put into place to give them the teeth they need in order to be able to control the bad actors is sufficient. I don't think changing the time is going to make any difference.
my concern is, we agree that it's got to be holistic, but this has been going on for so long that I just don't think next week we'll figure it out. In the meantime, we need to deal with this stuff. So we need to give the police department more tools to be able to deal with the issues at hand.
The SRX issue has resolved itself. There's no current problem. You just said that there is no current data.
At the moment, tomorrow, you have to think long
So
term.
we can come back and address it.
We're past our time certain, so we need to wrap up.
We've got the two consensus items to put in the fee structure of provision, to put in there that the police department will improve the security standards, and then we will bring this back for a follow-up briefing with the updating to that list of in CBD, out of CBD, hours of operation, SRX enforcement. Sound good?
Thank you.